Okay, it is 7 o'clock yep, 7 o'clock. And I'll call the October 24th Board of Selectmen meeting to order. Is there any public comment?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, David Polito here. I just was looking through the agenda for tonight, and I noticed that there's a proposal to put a playground in Five Islands across from the community center. Am I correct on that? Okay, and so I'm assuming that across the road means on the other side of the old schoolhouse road?
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any opinion on the use of conservation land, and I have nothing to say to that. But what I would like to say is that I think that that's a very challenging place for a playground, primarily for safety reasons. And some of those reasons I'll just try to briefly explain without taking a lot of your time. But I've driven that road for 50 years, and I know it pretty well. I use it several times a day, at least. So there's a stop sign at the corner of the old schoolhouse road and 127, which is from the north, generally considered a yield sign. And very few people actually stop there, whether they're commercial vehicles or residential vehicles. And so because they don't anticipate stopping at that sign, people are generally traveling to the south, from the north to the south, on a posted road, a road that's posted at 25, typically going at least 10 over the limit and sometimes more, because they're not anticipating stopping. So that's the situation from the north. And also, as you approach that spot from the north, you're in a curve. The trees come right to the road, so the visibility would be very bad as someone were to approach that playground. So that I don't know, I'm sure what just happened. Am I still?
You're still talking.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So primarily that's from the north. That's the situation. From the south, as people turn left onto Old Schoolhouse Road, they are not really in a mood to slow down.
Somebody is not muted out there. Please mute if you're not speaking. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So as people make the left turn off of 127 onto that road, they're often cutting across the opposing lane of traffic. I've had that situation there myself where I couldn't get to the stop sign because somebody with a landscape trailer was just making the turn, cutting right across that. Again, people are in a hurry. They're not slowing down. They have no intention of slowing down. So I think that's the challenge, is speed. Also, at nighttime in Five Islands in the summer, it's a recreational time for kids. They play basketball at the community center in the dark. They're playing in the dark at the tennis courts. And if you have a playground across from the community center, they'll be playing there in the dark. And kids are kids, and they're not going to be worried about crossing the road. They might chase their dog. They might the parking for the facility is going to be across the road. It's not an option of crossing the road. So I won't go on anymore, but to say that I just think it's just a really bad spot for a playground from a public safety standpoint. So that's all I got.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other comments or any other public comment?
Yes, this is David Teller. Can you hear me, Jonathan?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just had a clarification on the agenda. I see there's two names that are up for the Harbor Committee, and the question was, is that for members or for alternates?
Members.
That is for members.
Okay, so the follow-up question to that is, what is the role then of the alternates? Do they not get considered?
I'll answer that when I make the presentation for the appointments.
No. Why?
Well, if you do that, then I won't be able to ask any follow-up questions because we're not allowed to talk in the meeting, so. All right,
Okay, anything else? That looks like it. Any items to be added to the agenda?
I believe that we will have one additional appointment at the time when we get there.
Okay,
And it was for Michael Farina to the Harbor Committee.
okay,
Jonathan,
yes,
I think we need to address the issue of video equipment in the conference room. Since Rich is interested in retrieving his large screen that we've all become accustomed to using.
okay. Is that under business or new business or something? Put it there or right now?
Yeah, right. No, not right now.
Okay,
Now let's go with the agenda, but new business is fine.
okay, perfect. We can do that. So, that being done, you can take it over, I guess, see what's going on for the rest of the stuff.
All right, so the first item that we have is a public hearing on the town's general assistance ordinance appendices. And I would turn this back to John to entertain a motion to go into a public hearing.
Entertain a motion to enter a public hearing on the town's general assistance ordinance appendices.
And we need a motion in a second.
Sorry, second.
Or a motion.
Oh, I thought you made the motion. Sorry. I move we go into a public hearing on the general assistance appendices.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's seconded. All right. Are there any comments?
I
Or
would
is this, do we need any? Or are there any? I mean, how's this work?
We would open it up to the public, but I just note that the overall maximums are going up $339. Fuel, electric, personal care, and funeral would be included in that. Housing has gone up and food is up $60 a month for a family of 8. This is stuff that comes from the state and we adopt annually. Full disclosure, we probably should have adopted this at the last meeting, but it got buried in my email and I mistook it. So
Okay. All right,
just some background, so, and then we'd open it up to public if anybody wanted to weigh in, and if
Okay.
not, we'd.
is there any public comment? Seeing none, I declare this hearing closed. Is there a motion to approve the new general assistance ordinance appendices?
Sure. Yes, so
Okay,
moved.
and I will agree, or do we vote on it after that? All in favor?
All
Yes.
right, it is 3-0. And the next scheduled appointment we'll have is with Bill Van Tynen, who should be arriving to the meeting about 7:15, which gives us a chance to jump into the minutes. The first one we have are the minutes of the September 26th meeting for review and approval.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Bronwyn and John, any discussion?
Everything seems to be great to me.
All in favor?
Aye.
What are these? No, I'm not talking about that.
What or what?
2 copies, there's a new copy.
I stuck down a copy on the table. I didn't realize you had your packet with you. My bad.
Oh, we're good.
All right, so we are good on those minutes. We can now go on to the minutes of last week's October 17th special meeting for review and approval.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Favor.
All right. And in your packets, you did have some items to review. We had hauling numbers for the third quarter. We also had an updated permit listing of where we're at. And we also had the September 30 financials. Typically, we wouldn't be getting those as late in October, but we didn't have the October 10th meeting, so here they are now. And the next item that we'd have, we're still waiting on Bill, we're making good time, is I just wanted to update folks on assessing items that I'm still working on, reviewing some of the pre-commitment work that was done by Pat Dow to make sure that all the Ts and Is are dotted and crossed, and it's good to get a second set of eyes. And Mary's been very helpful, pointing out some helpful things to keep an eye out for. Under our correspondence, we did have the October newsletter from the Georgetown Volunteer Fire Department. I also forwarded along the legislative update from Senator Vitelli. It's a regular newsletter that she puts out with good information and good local resources. The Maine Department of Marine Resources put out a notice about limited purpose aquaculture licenses. And this one was pretty vague, noting that there are licenses in Georgetown that may or may not be renewed in the upcoming year. And they intended to provide that notice online by November 13th. So we'll monitor this on this end. I just wanted to make sure the board was aware that that is hanging out there. We also had a public hearing notice from the Maine Department of Marine Resources regarding an aquaculture lease site in Robin Hood Cove. It's a 7-acre lease for 20 years. Marine Resources had asked to use our conference room, and we accepted. It will be held on November 15th with a rain date or snow date the following day, November 16th. They're asking that folks who are interested in participating pre-register. And there's information on the bulletin board, and if anybody's interested, we can get you that login info. I also shared with the board an e-blast from the Maine Department of Labor. We get these periodically, and it was about an 8 or 9 page packet of good links and resources that I just felt folks may want to peruse at their leisure, but I will spare you the 8 pages of what they all are. We also were in receipt of the Saginaw County Sheriff's Incident Report. It's worth noting that in September, there were 37 incidences, and they varied. The highest number was calls for information, but we went from anything from welfare checks to, 911 hang up, et cetera. And I can provide that if anybody would like physical copies. We also had the Maine Municipal Association's RMS Express. It's their risk management update, and I encourage members of the board to check these out as they come in. They're good information on risk management. And this edition talked a little bit about what was going on at the convention. And the last item that I had under correspondence, I wanted to flag for the board that there is an assessing for non-assessors Zoom class on November 16th, 11/16. Same thing. If you'd like to sign up, let me know. It is looking to be about an hour and a half with good basics on the assessing process, and it's always a good refresher.
What time is it?
It is going to be 1 to 2:30 p.m. And, they're asking folks RSVP sooner than later, but we could do it as late as the 13th of November. But again, mark your calendars. In terms of other correspondence, I have nothing. And before we head on, I see Jake has arrived, who is actually Bill Van Tynen. So I'm going to admit Bill, and he will be addressing us momentarily. Are you in, Bill?
Jake.
It is Jake. He is in down here, so we'll let him unmute himself.
Yeah, he is muted.
Yep, I think he's getting it set up. Ask to unmute him. Are you there, Bill? There he is.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
The floor is yours, Bill Van Tynen.
You ready for me to start going over things?
Yes, we are, and board members have copies of the packet you provided today,
Okay,
starting with that cover sheet memo.
okay. Just as a little background, real estate prices have been spiraling upward in the last few years. And your ratio of assessed values to sales prices has been declining. Every year, the state sends the town a ratio declaration based on their own analysis of sales in the town. And for 2023, they said your ratio was, I think, 74%. Looking for next year, they did an analysis for your 2024 state valuation, and your ratio, commonly called the assessment ratio, had fallen to somewhere in the 60% range, not as low as 60%, but below 70%, in the 60s. The most practical effect of a declining ratio is that you have to assess all property fairly, and you have to adjust exemptions by the assessment ratio. So if your ratio is 80%, for example, instead of a $25,000 homestead exemption, it should be reduced by 80% down to 20,000. Tree growth values should be adjusted by the assessment ratio. And in your town, the only commercial property that I do every year at my estimate of 100% of value is CMP, and that should be adjusted by the town's ratio. There's also a statutory requirement that towns should maintain their assessments at least 70% of value. And for this year, by the state's own analysis, they said you were at 74%, but for next year, you're going to fall below 70%. So I was asked to explore the feasibility of increasing your assessed value closer to 100%. And that's what I've done. It certainly can be done. When I look at all land and building sales with your existing values for the period 1/1/22 to 4/30/2023, that's a short period of time, but with rapid real estate inflation, it has to be a short period of time, or the sales get out of date before they're even analyzed. So with all land and building sales, that ratio is 52.49%. With rural land and building sales, and now I noticed I misspelled building on that line, the ratio is 53.71%. And for shorefront land and building sales, it's 48.69%. If I update the schedules, and this is a very the appraisal schedules, and this is a very substantial increase, the ratio for all land and buildings becomes 96.98%. The rural land and building sales become 97.08%, and the shorefront land and building sales become 94.4%. They're all reasonably close together. On both land and building, all sales, and rural land and building sales, the coefficient of dispersion, which is a measure of how close all the individual ratios in the sales analysis are to the average sale, is a little higher than I'd like to see. But Georgetown is a very diverse community as far as property types, home types, land types. And certainly that's the best that I can do as affixed to the ratio without doing an exhaustive amount of work. And then even if I did, I don't know that I could get it a whole lot better than that. Any questions so far? Anything I've said?
Yes,
Bronwyn.
please. Two things. Would you once again explain the coefficient of dispersion, the COD, the column, and when you're, am I understanding that the idea is you update the appraisals by a percentage across the board? Or is there, are you considering property by property? It's not a revaluation.
No, it's not. So in terms of your first question, the coefficient of dispersion, often abbreviated COD or called a quality rating. If a town had, say, 3 sales, and one ratio was 95%, one ratio was 100%, and one was 105%, they'd have a perfect ratio of 100%. And they'd have a very low coefficient of dispersion, maybe somewhere around 7 or 8 or 9, which is excellent. It indicates very little dispersion around the average. If they had 3 sales, one at 50%, one at 100%, and one at 150%, they'd still have a perfect ratio on the average of 100%. But the coefficient of dispersion would be in excess of 30. So that kind of illustrates what a coefficient of dispersion means. The lower the number, the less dispersion, kind of like a golf game. The lower the score, the better. In the state law, it suggests that we have to have a coefficient of dispersion of less than 20. But that's very hard to achieve in a town that's as diverse in real estate types as Georgetown. In terms of what I did to update, I revised the dwelling cost schedule and other building schedules up considerably with a multiplier of a considerable amount. I think it was 1.9 or 1.95, which I think gives a relatively good estimate of construction cost now. On the land, I applied a little more of a multiplier on the shorefront than I did on the rural land. I used 5% of a higher multiplier on the shorefront land than I did on the rural land. And that's roughly what the difference in the original ratio of shorefront land and all land and buildings were. And it is 5% on the original ratios of rural land and building sales and shorefront land and building sales. Did I address your questions okay?
Yes, thank you. That's very helpful.
Were there any other questions at this stage?
Nope, not for me.
I think you can keep going, Bill.
So it's your choice. I mean, we can proceed with the valuations that you have now. We have certified, or the town has certified with a ratio declaration filed in June that they'll accept the state's ratio determination of 74%, and you would be obligated to adjust the exemptions, tree growth values, and the CMP value by that 74% ratio. Or you can implement the update. It's entirely up to you what you wish to do. It's a very, very substantial change in valuation. It'll have a very substantial, I would expect, downward influence on your tax rate. It's not like the same tax rate will be used on an updated valuation as was used on last year's valuation. And what I've done so far is I've made these changes on essentially a copy of your original database called Trio Play, where, as Tyler kind of put it the other day, I can experiment with the values in a sandbox without affecting your existing valuation schedules and values. So I haven't done it with your real live data, but I can do it and implement the same changes that I did on Trio Play if you decide that this is the way to go.
Were the examples, stuff that had been sold, the recent sales, is that what that sales from the 22 to 20?
Yes.
Okay, so that, those are things that have sold, and you adjusted that on those to make it better, I guess, would be the way to look at it.
And you can
That-
see where we have the valuation
Yep.
compared to where
It's sold.
some of them are almost 4 times as many.
Yep. I knew it was way out of whack just from. Okay, and that would,
And in part, what Bill is also stating, if we go ahead and adopt this updated appraisal schedule, he's also saying that we should go back to main revenue and ask them to correct our certified ratio from 74 to
or whatever the new number
96
is.
or 97.
The new number,
In
at
which
least the
case-
way I've proposed it, is close enough to 100%. You're allowed a little bit of leeway that you would ask for it to be adjusted to 100%. And I expect there's no problem in doing that, and main revenue would accept it. And the same information that's in front of you would be put in front of Maine Revenue with a request so they can see what has been done.
I believe Rich had a,
More of a statement, just our valuations are gonna increase quite a bit. So our mill rate will drop considerably.
Mhm.
But still, people may find they're paying more taxes this year because of the spending that we've taken on since the last town meeting. So even though our valuations are going way up, the mill rate's gonna drop way down, we still can see a significant tax increase. Just so no one's surprised by how did the mill rate go down and how come we're paying more taxes this year than last. Now, we haven't set that mill rate yet.
Mhm.
We'll see that in a future select board meeting. I just don't want any surprises to come out. I'm like, wow, how'd that happen?
Right, and we also need to realize that we have 100 people that are in the tax stabilization program that will pay what they paid last year in taxes, regardless of what this assessment does to them, unless their tax bill is less. And
Mhm.
if it's less, they'll pay less.
and there are a handful
so-
of properties in town that could actually see it go down depending.
So, yes,
I,
But the exemptions will be at 100%.
correct. Their exemptions would be restored back to that 100%, yes.
I think we have a huge PR issue, whatever we do. Tyler and I were talking earlier today about this situation in Brunswick, where they essentially tried to do this ratio increase and met with a lot of taxpayer opposition. I think that's because the issue wasn't fully understood. If I'm getting correctly what Bill is telling us, everybody's valuation goes up because the basic criteria for assessing buildings and land goes up. And so it's not, it's based on how big your house is and how much land you have and whether it's rural or on the water. Is that accurate?
That's a very short summary, but that's accurate. I mean, it also depends on what body of water you're on. If you're on Indian Point, on the deep water end of the lake, or even on Sagadahoc Bay, it's going to go up more than if you're on Halls Bay on the far end of town, where it's very tidal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
One of the things I want to make you aware of is in some towns, this is much more controversial than others. One town that I do is Skowhegan, and there's a large paper mill. And there's a substantial hydroelectric plant. There's a large CMP value. And there's a very specialized mill that makes precipitated calcium carbonate as an additive to the paper mill. And those are properties that you don't observe a lot of sales on. And I am pretty confident that their assessed value already reflects 100% of value. So in a town like that, and this I think is somewhat true for Brunswick as well, the assessors have a hard choice to, one, bring down the industrial property value to the same level that residential sales indicate that residential properties have for an assessed value, or they can update the residential properties and keep the industrial properties that are very, very substantial in a town like Skowhegan at 100%. Either approach results in a bit or a substantial shift of the tax burden onto residential properties. But that's an issue that you substantially do not have because the town is almost all residential property.
So regardless, it gets us closer to where we're supposed to be. And I don't think we really, I mean, it's short of a real appraisal, but that doesn't mean it's gonna stay. So I mean, this is I think this is the best option we have to get caught back up with the real world. So,
The same thing happened in 2007.
Yeah, we did between 2007 and 2008.
Before the crash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and which time our mill rate went from 8.1 to 5.7. So,
I have one other question about the materials that you've given us. They all say sales analysis report. The dates are not always different. They're, the account and the map lot and the date of sale and the price, that's the original price, I guess. Those appear to remain the same, but the valuation is 81,000. I'm looking at the first number, 81,000, 147,000, and then it's not even on the next one. So what is the difference between these sets? Am I making, am I?
All right,
confused?
the first set in each analysis is your existing valuations. So for all the property sales, all the improved land and building sales, the mid-quartile mean, which is what the state suggests we use for the average, is 52.4868%, with a coefficient of dispersion of 23.0231. If you go back a few more, another page, I've got improved sales again with the new property valuations that would, with a detailed list of the new property valuations on the following page, with a mid-quartile mean of 96.9757%, with a coefficient of dispersion of 22.5928. So I've given you a sales analysis for each one of these groupings with your existing valuations that are very out of date, approaching 50% for at least this time period that I looked at. And then updated with the new revised appraisal schedules.
So what you're talking about, Bronwyn, with the map and lot, that's the backup to justify the cover sheet. So like on that sales
Yes. Yes.
analysis report with the mid-quartile mean of 52, that next page, when you see the price at 345 and the valuation at 81, that means currently we had that property valued at 81,000 and change. It
Correct.
sold for 345 and change.
Correct.
And then the next cover sheet with that 96 was all of the sales with the work that Bill did to get the new valuations. And then it shows you again some of the work to justify it behind it.
Correct.
with the
But
new meetings
then-
and administration.
What about the next sheet where account 762, still sold for $345,000. Oops, that's the,
Yeah.
but there's one, the valuation is 147. Okay, that's the new valuation again.
Right, yep,
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, there were just too many pages.
yep.
All
And
right,
then the next one that's only got about 6 sales on it, Bronwyn, is your shorefront. Okay.
Oh, I
the
see.
Last two pieces are the shorefront
Uh-huh.
at what we currently have, and then the shorefront at the revised numbers,
yeah, okay,
okay?
okay.
We'll put some good chicken scratch on those next time.
Yeah.
That's all right. I get it. Are you looking for direction tonight, Bill?
There's still a little work that I have to do. Let me explain that I kind of missed the month of September. I had an infection in my lower left leg, and I spent an awful lot of time in an easy chair with my legs raised, because that's what the doctors told me to do. So I'm a little behind. But basically what's left to do is there's a handful of mapping changes that have to be done where conveyances have been made that gave a piece of land, conveyed a piece of land to somebody else, and they retained some land, what we call splits. And we have to value and map out those accounts. I have to finish the appraisal of CMP. That will only take me a couple of hours. And I have to probably address some questions that Mary and Tyler may have about some of the routine field work we did. So I have a little bit of work to do. And I can certainly wait for you to consider this, get some second opinions on, if you'd like to, from other assessing people you may know. It's not going to take me very long to implement the changes that I've shown you the results of with these sales ratio studies and this memo. So you don't have to make a decision tonight. But I would suggest you should make it relatively soon.
Particularly because this is a decision that would need to be made before we can commit taxes, right, Bill?
That's correct.
So the longer we wait on that, the longer that process can take.
So if we shoot for the 14th of November, which is our first meeting in November, to approve the new valuation numbers.
Mhm.
I'm assuming you're gonna get the report before, and we have to make an assumption that the select board will approve those numbers. So I think it's logical, and Mary, back me up. If we approve these numbers on the 14th and you spitball some valuation or some mill rate adjustments, then on the 28th, we'll be front loaded with 2 weeks worth of time to think about that. And we can set the rate on the 28th, which is really late for this board.
28th of November?
Yeah, that's the second meeting in November.
Yeah, but isn't that Thanksgiving?
It's Tuesday.
No, it's a-
Oh, no,
Thanksgiving
sorry,
Thursday.
yep, that's right, sorry, yep. Okay.
That'll give us a full 2 weeks. We'll just push back because the first Tuesday is the 7th. So it'll be the 14th, we'll get the numbers, and Tyler, hopefully you'll have a couple of worksheets out, or one worksheet like we typically get with 3 or 4 numbers, and we can chew on it for the next 2 weeks and then approve on the second meeting in November.
Okay, the numbers that you're talking about chewing around on, are they gonna be new numbers?
Of course, because we're gonna have a new valuation, so the mill rate's gonna drop, and we'll have an idea, and
No, what I'm getting at is if we have to approve Bill doing those changes in order for us to get numbers to chew
I
on.
know, he's gonna give Tyler the numbers before the next meeting. He'll have them, well, they're not approved, but he'll have them.
I think
Okay.
what you're assuming is that we tell him tonight, we want the new numbers. Is that right? In other words, it seems like the steps are to say, okay, Bill, do the revaluation. And then say, we accept these numbers you've given us, and then set the mill rate.
The acceptance of the numbers Bill's given us would, yes, I'm saying, suggesting that we ask Bill to move forward. On the 14th of November, we formally accept the numbers, and on the 28th of November, we approve the mill rate.
That makes sense to me. I mean, that's,
That, I just wanna make
Yes,
sure
no,
we're all
I'm-
clear
no,
on the
I'm-
timeline, because that's ridiculously late. Tax
But-
bills won't go out until the first week of December.
That's right.
And that's 5 weeks late, at least a month.
but we really don't have any other options beyond that. We're just the way this has come out, so.
Well, we could have a special meeting. I mean, if the time, if we don't need so much time to look at the numbers, but I think the numbers we chew on are generally the consequences of one mill rate over another, and how much overlay we're willing to either forego or need to end up with, whichever way you look at that.
Right.
So the numbers that we need time to deal with are the projections that have to do with various mill rates on the numbers that Bill comes up with for the new values. So we could, do we actually approve those numbers? I mean, it amounts to accepting the assessor's upgrade of valuation.
Right, normally you don't approve the numbers per se, you set the mill rate. Bill tells you, Bill does his work, and then we have new valuation numbers and then we set our mill rate.
I think we'll have to accept those, won't we?
What's that?
Since evaluation is not on a reevaluation, but a paper evaluation,
Right.
reeval, the select board will have to accept those formally. There'll be a motion and an acceptance
Right.
of those new numbers, because we're making a drastic change to valuation in the town.
Correct.
So there is some not homework, but some administrative work that we have to do to get the numbers. Two questions for you, Mary. One is the note, the TAN comes due on the 31st of March. Taxes will be due on the 60th day following when we mail them out.
Yep.
So
January.
somewhere around the first week of February,
Yep.
taxes will come in. So it shouldn't put an undue burden on people over the holiday,
Right.
which is positive.
Mhm.
Between the first week of February and the 31st of March, do you foresee having enough tax income
Yes,
that we can pay off the TAN? Because
absolutely,
we have a contract already with a hard date on it.
that's correct. Yeah, and that's why I put the date, March 24th. I mean, March 31, 24. I think normally we do it at the end of February,
Okay,
I think.
those
But
are
yes.
numbers that we have
Yes.
to be aware of.
Yeah,
No,
honestly,
it's-
within the first month, I expect over $1 million in.
Then we can pay off this loan.
I just, yeah.
We don't want to default. We have a pretty good record of not defaulting on TANs.
We won't.
So do we need to make a motion to have Bill or continue on this thing, or is it just a?
Yeah, that's what I think we need to do.
Yeah.
I move that we direct Bill Ventini to complete the paper revaluation and give us the numbers.
So Bronwyn move, Rich second.
I'm in favor.
Any more discussion? 3-0. Is there anything more you need for direction from us, Bill, or does that direction?
So I have direction to go ahead with implementing these changes. And
Yes.
I'll certainly have them to you by the 14th.
Okay, well, thank you. That's good that, so it's, yeah, getting this stuff figured out.
Okay, and Bill, we'll be in touch, Tyler and I will be in touch in the morning, to talk about this letter to Maine Revenue. But
Okay.
I think it's all set pretty much the way you've done it.
Okay. Well,
And
thank
does
you.
that shouldn't require all three, can just the chair of the Board of Selectmen sign that? That
I
letter to Maine
think,
Revenue?
I think either you or Tyler or a member of the board, anything like that would be fine.
Okay, thank you,
Perfect.
thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Actually, why don't you take a vote on directing Tyler to repetition the state
Good idea.
for a revised ratio? So he can just say it's pursuant to a vote of the Board of Selectmen to send the letter. I think that'll very easily take care of it.
Yep,
Great idea.
Is-
I move that we direct Tyler to request whatever that letter is to the state.
yes.
I hope you've already done that, Tyler.
Done.
Second.
All right, I love direction. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Look at that, 3-0. Thank you, Bill. That's really good feedback.
Okay. All set?
Think so.
I think,
We all set? with
All
Bill?
set,
All
thank you.
right. Thank you very much.
thank
Have a
you.
good evening. Take care.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for your hard work on that.
All right, and now we're back onto the agenda. I will zoom through, excuse the pun, my town administrator update. Any questions as I'm going through, pop a hand up and I can answer them. I just wanted to give some general office information about what's going on here in regards to the election. Absentee voting is now underway. Folks can stop by town office to vote early or pick up absentee ballots. You can also request them online or even by phone, or vote in person on election day. Dog licensing is also now underway. Stop by town office in the next 2 months. You can avoid a state mandated late fee that is almost 3, 4, 5 times what the registration is. In terms of the Maine Municipal Association Convention, Rich, Mary, and I attended, and we were able to cover a wide range of classes. It was good networking, and I really think it helped point us in the direction on learning some new things. On 10/10, I had a Zoom meeting with Tracy Robinson, who's the Government Affairs Manager at Verbo. I met with her to begin gathering some information ahead of any discussions that we have regarding short-term rentals. And she's pledged to be a resource when and where it's applicable. And I think that's a great stakeholder to at least have engaged. Household Hazardous Waste Day was a success. I just wanted to note that Topsom, with over 8 times the population of Georgetown, only had twice the participants. So well done, Georgetown. Last week, we presented the Boston Post cane, or Chairman Collins did, to Jack Schneider. Over 50 people were in attendance, and I wanted to say a thank you to the Historical Society for hosting. It was a particularly good event. On 10/18 last week, we had a site visit from Joe Lloyd of Sparhawk Engineering and his team to go through the town office, school, fire station, and community center to begin their work on the Climate Resiliency Grant Program's energy audit. And we're looking forward to watching that progress. Just very briefly, John will touch on this in his report, but we did have the meeting today with the Sheepscot Island Company and local legislators, and I'll let John speak to that. I wanted to inform the board that this Thursday, there will be a site visit from FEMA on the Robin Hood Road to visit the culvert project that continues to be ongoing. We are hopeful that an award will be made soon. It sounds like this may be the final T to cross, but fingers crossed. And lastly, I just wanted to flag that there's a special warrant on October 30th for the county taxes that are due October 31st. With that, if there are any questions about that update, I'll take them. And if not, I'd turn this over to Mary for the finance director update. Seeing none, go Mary.
All right. As Tyler mentioned, we went to the MMA convention, informative as usual. Always good contacts, new things. I believe in front of you tonight, you will have a package from Freddie Flaherty, it's the resolution of the town of Georgetown, Maine, authorizing the sale of not more than 500,000 in tax anticipation note of the town. This is just our document, authorizing that savings, and Freddie Flaherty has prepared these documents for them. So we'll be requesting that be approved. And then just authorization for the TAN. And then Freddie Flaherty has given us a post-issuance compliance procedures policy that they're looking to us to implement. It's just a policy. It's one that they have encouraged their clients to use. I would just like to review it in detail before I pass it on to you folks. So I'll probably have that as a first read for you for your next meeting. And then today I was on a Zoom participation with our heating and supplemental folks from the United Way. About 50 of us or so on the call, which we go over energy costs and fuel costs and electricity and what's out there for everybody. And that was a good meeting because as you know, we're going into the winter season and general assistance will ramp up. The community center has funding available, as does the church down in Five Islands. And a couple other places for folks that need help. So there's help out there. If anyone needs it, please, make sure they get to the right people. And then just that next week will be the warrant for county tax. Our money will be going next week, a little over $1 million to go out to them. And then I'll just work some numbers when I get some numbers from Bill. I mean, I'm looking at his numbers. I expect a substantial drop in the mill rate. So
That doesn't correspond to a drop in taxes.
it does not. Not for everybody, that is correct. Yeah. I don't know if Brian is gonna mention in the public comment section, but he's got, we're working on the squad. We've got the liner in. It's going up to Banana Banners, I believe, this week for some lettering. And then Wayland and RCM's doing the radios in the beginning of November, so the squad is here and getting ready. That's about it for me.
Any questions for Mary? Seeing none, we can move on to committee updates. I just wanted to let you know that we are in receipt of the Conservation Commission meeting minutes for September 11th, as well as the Solid Waste September 14th meeting. And I would turn this over to Bronwyn for the membership portion.
Okay, I just wanted to say a couple of things about the committees. The Conservation Commission has a potluck coming up at the community center. I think it's November 5th. And as part of that event, there will be displays about weatherization, energy conservation, which is part of the grant requirements for public outreach and education. And the at some point we need to revisit the question of having fees set by the select board and changing how we're going about that. Woody was asking me about mooring fees and how that will play out in terms of the need to update the ordinance for the Harbor Committee. And so moving on to the Harbor Committee and membership, we had 3 vacancies on the Harbor Committee membership due to health reasons of former members, etc. And in thinking about appointments, Woody and I discussed the advantages of expanding the perspectives that are represented on that committee. It had become particularly centered in one part of the island and geographically, and with all recreational boaters. And the Harbor Committee is charged with overseeing all of the harbors. And since we're an island, they're all around us. And Woody has reached out and secured the services of Lauren Francis, who's the manager and owner of the Back River Boatyard, and deals with clients who have moorings all over the island. And Skip Foster, I believe it's Foster, not Forster, but if somebody who knows him could correct me if I'm wrong.
That was a typo
He-
on my part.
Okay, he's a diver and services many of the moorings around the island, and also has a boat and is out on the water a lot. And so we'd like to recommend them each for terms that end in 2026. And the third vacancy, we would upgrade Mike Farina from alternate to committee member, with a term ending in 2025, I believe. I gave Tyler the breakdown because we also need to re-stagger the terms. They got kind of congested around 24. And that leaves David as the lone alternate. There can be up to 3. And I would answer his earlier question, David Teller, about the purpose of the alternates. The first purpose is to be able to vote if they don't have a quorum of members. So it's an ongoing responsibility. And when there's more than one alternate, there's not a lot of choice, room to choose. You can view it as a toss of the coin. So I'd like to move those 3 appointments, since they're all to the Harbor Committee. And I can add the alternate to the Board of Appeals if you want to do it all in one large swath. You'll remember Pam Ganell recently joined the Rec Committee, where she's been very active. And she's Jack Ganell's daughter and is a permanent resident now of Georgetown and volunteered to serve. So would you like that all as one motion, John, or as separate motions?
You can do it as one, just, I'll do one motion is fine.
Okay, then I nominate those individuals to the positions stated.
And seconded by Rich.
Any comment? Nope, all in favor?
3-0.
Yep.
Perfect. And that jumps us into other liaison updates, and Rich or John.
Well, I can go first. I did actually have some meetings back in the beginning of the month. I've almost forgotten about. Rep committee, they were looking to get pizza and just do the have pizza and stuff at the Halloween and then march around the square, I guess. Talked about swim lessons. They're having a people doing the swim lessons. Somebody retired or somebody's not doing it, so they're waiting to get new people before they go any farther on that one. That was their big thing on the rec committee. The shellfish committee, they've got some revised ordinance stuff. Takes into consideration the fee schedule, because that was one of the things the person from DMR said that they shouldn't be in their ordinance. It should be something else in the town doing it. So that's one. Well, no, I mean, it's somebody else had already pointed that, or was pointing that out. It's just, so that's something we can look, that we're working towards. They're working on a current management plan, because that's something else that the state has mandated that they need to do, but that's pretty much a like a form letter that they have to fill out. And those are the two big things that they did. And then the only other thing was from today, the meeting with Natahan Island, Sheepshead Island stuff. There's a lot more than just the original thought of it's been looked into before as far as this whole the money they get back. And the last time, which I was unaware of, was when Bill Plummer was a selectman, Dale Savoy was the road commissioner, and they looked at this thing. And apparently it's a quagmire of who actually owns the roads over there. And it's one of those things, or it may be something we don't want to jump into, because if all of a sudden the town is required, or town takes over as their responsibility for roads, it would be an absolute nightmare to try to do that. But that's something we're gonna look into. At least we've started talking back and forth, and there's just a couple of, there are things we need to look into when we start considering if we want to change that agreement with them as far as the taxes go. So it probably brought up more questions than anything. Is there, and I know it's been pretty, I didn't really, any details or anything like that. Are there any other questions, you'd have about it from when?
They haven't been publicly accessible in years. It's like having a private road, you close it, it stops being a public road. None of our housing developments, however, Bowman's Landing, Beaver Valley, Higgins Farm, we don't pay for road maintenance. So why would their association be any different? I see it as smoke and mirrors. And you have people in multi-million-dollar homes that don't want to give up $28,000 they're getting back from Georgetown. I think we should still pursue it. And the
But there are things
came
that-
up was certainly prepared to speak. Without being here, I still know she was prepared to speak to it. But I don't see it being the quagmire. There are islands all over the state of Maine that don't get a tax break. Malden's one of them. So my recommendation is we continue down the path, but whatever the board.
Well, that just, I mean, we need to talk about it.
And on the 30th, Friday, Eloise is on the board that puts the bills that are gonna be.
Thursday,
reviewed
legislative
Thursday.
council.
All right, so Thursday, Eloise is gonna be, it's up to her.
Right.
Because of
So
the meeting today, she may defer until the next regular legislature instead of a special. So we'll see Thursday if we have to take action now or we have another year to wait.
well, that's another whole aspect of the thing. Those were the three things that I had on my thing to keep up with. Roman, so now it's your turn?
Liaison updates, big changes will be happening with the affordable housing and the ADUs and the tiny homes, more of the ADUs and the mother-in-law apartments, et cetera. There are a lot of building code requirements that we currently are not paying as much attention to as we probably should. There's state requirements, there's state mandates that we have to ensure we have proper firewalls and things between mother-in-law apartments and homes. That was all brought up at the MMA convention. The gentleman from the governor's office, Mr. Fecto, is no longer in that office, but he was completely oblivious to the impact of those rules on small communities and island communities. He's party line, this is the greatest thing ever, and if you don't like it, I don't understand what your problem is. I have a meeting with Kristen and Tyler to be determined to see, she sent an email today. I want Tyler to be a part of the conversation on 1706, and if we repeal. I've spoken with Kate, help me with Kate. Q4 up at MMA, and there are a number of small communities in Maine that may want to jump on it's not a class action, because it's not.
Yes,
But a number of us would all petition the state through the court system to negate this law before it takes effect. In our case, that's 31 July next year is when we're held accountable. So more to follow. We'll see what Kristen has to say, and then I'll follow up with Kate DeFore and then start down the path of how many other towns are involved and how much it's gonna cost.
you briefly mentioned that before, though, that whole part of it.
Now we're taking the next step.
Okay.
Anything else to add to that report?
I don't think so.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to old business.
I
And
just
we-
want to mention,
oh,
Tyler, as
yes.
from the liaison thing, which is meant to be sort of outside of committee work, that I had a call from someone at the Robin Hood Road concern, and apparently not the first expression of concern, about a particularly a spot he describes as particularly dangerous. He's worried about drop off. There's no shoulder and a very steep drop off if somebody misses the edge. And John told me that it's near the culvert and it's all hanging on the waiting on the FEMA grant to get fixed. I relayed that information, but I'd like you to consider whether signage or caution or a little orange tape might make everybody feel better. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
And now we're on to old business, and there was the resolution for borrowing the tax anticipation note that came from council. Mary spoke to that in her finance director's report. Is there anything else that you?
Well, not unless I have any questions on it. Resolution, yeah. No.
Is there a motion to approve?
Oh, yes. I don't know what we do if we don't get the loan. Yeah,
I think Bronwyn moved. Was there a second?
Second.
Okay,
All
Any-
right,
any comments? Nope, but all in favor?
perfect. And I have that to be signed after the meeting.
Okay,
And I just wanted to provide under old business a brief update. At our September board workshop, we discussed some changes to the financial controls and personnel policies that we went through. Mary and I have been discussing implementing some of those, but quite frankly, commitment related stuff has taken a priority, and we're hoping to be able to circle back on this in the near future with time for you guys to chew on it. And so with that, we jump into new business. And the first item was a community center request to put a playground equipment across the street from Georgetown Community Center on Conservation Commission land, map and lot 13U003. And there was a memo that went out in your packet about that.
and you also have do you have a recommendation from the Conservation Commission? They discussed this at their most recent meeting and are in favor of it. There was discussion of safety issues, and the notation that you would need a crosswalk, given Dave's considerations about speed, maybe you need a speeding bump. Be the first one in Georgetown that was deliberate. And it's not really a large playground. It's essentially, Mary can speak to this better than I because she's on the community center board, but it's a swing set with climbing. Is that kind of accurate?
Yes, it's, we had, a group of folks that came in and used the community center, this summer. And when they donated some money, it was about $1,100 or so. The board said, wouldn't it be nice to do something special with that donation? So, we talked about it, and it is a piece, you've got a picture of it right there. It's one piece of play equipment, which has, you know, a little slide on it, a little place for them to, actually two slides on it, a little swing set, you know, and like hanging things. Not for children, not to hang themselves, but anyway, So it's pretty much directly across the street from the community center, behind the road that, I think Savoy or somebody
The
put in.
access road
The
there,
access road to Ipcar. So, we had marked out a spot for it. You know, don't think that there'll need to be any trees removed or anything. It's just a brushy area. We're counting on volunteers to help us do it. We don't think that we'll have a problem getting the volunteers to help us. You know, we're gonna ask Charlie to put up, or Charlie, Jonathan, or somebody to put some big rocks, you know, as a blocking, you know, access to it other than by foot. And we appreciate that the Conservation Commission considered it and are happy about it. And we appreciate the other thoughts that came in about the safety thing, because honestly, as we mentioned at our board meeting the other night, we didn't really consider it as kids running across the street from the community center to the playground. We considered the people coming during when they're not at the community center with for the playground. So that was something, food for thought for us. We talked about a crosswalk, but then are a little bit concerned that there may be legal requirements for crosswalks for site situation and this and that. So we were going to speak with our road commissioner and our road folks about what else we might be able to do. So we just don't think that those concerns are roadblocks to at least getting, you know, the project started. We understand that we will need a memorandum of understanding with the town, because we would be putting, you know, the community center ideally would be responsible for maintaining this space. And therefore we'd want to have an understanding that we would do so. The community center would like the town to cover it as far as insurance, for insurance purposes and things like that. But we just felt like those are things that we can get done moving forward. So the community center is just asked, is coming to this board now, having received, you know, haven't seen the minutes of the meeting, but I did speak with Kathy Gravino. You know, and seems like they have blessed it. So on that portion of land.
They felt that it might be a reason to initiate some trails into that part of the preserve that hasn't been used. I think there are probably some issues about parking, about lighting, about safety. And does this would this require a permit from the planning board?
I don't believe so, Brahman, but I'll certainly check with Chris. I don't think so. Because it's a piece of playground equipment, so it's not a building or anything, but you never know. I'll ask.
Well, but it's a development. I mean, it's an area that it would be good to have for want of a better word, a construction drawing that showed where people would park, where the
good idea.
Stones would be, where the swings would be located.
For sure. Yep.
I would be more comfortable approving that level of planning.
Okay.
And just saying, oh, you know, put it there any way you can.
Right. Okay. For sure.
So we want that plan in place before we vote on it then? And then, I mean, just as far as.
Or would it make sense to have the select board send it to the planning board? So it's
It'd be codes and
Code enforcement guy.
And you can approve by conditional consideration of the codes enforcement officer. It would be a conditional approval. You guys would approve on condition of a plan submitted to the codes enforcement officer meeting the criteria that Bronwyn addressed.
Yeah.
Okay, did you hear that, Bronwyn?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. If you want to consider that Rich made a motion, I'd second it.
Well,
I can't make a motion, Bronwyn. I'm on the board of the community center.
He
Oh,
will be recusing himself
okay. Well, then I make the motion.
for conditional approval.
Yeah, subject to the code enforcement officers approving a plan that considers safety, lighting, and parking, and the exact placement of this equipment.
So
Okay.
she moved, or you seconding?
I'll second it.
All right,
And then we're both in favor.
I mean, yes.
2-0 to 1 recusal. Perfect. And now we will be moving on to our next item of new business, which we actually tackled earlier, the adoption of the GA appendices. So now we have a memorandum from the fire chief seeking approval on the process for the disposition of the old squad truck. And I'd be happy to elevate Brian to. There he is. They move around when someone's camera pops on.
Yes.
Why didn't you drop him?
Yeah, so thanks, Tyler. So what you guys have is the memo I wrote up for you, and just kind of spells out what my suggestion would be to use to dispose of the old engine and the old squad truck. So I've reached out otherwise through my contacts to the industry to see if we might, or another department might be interested in these things, but didn't really hear anything back. I think that's mostly based on the age and the condition of everything. So not really surprising, but there were a couple other options I looked at and didn't see that anything was really worthwhile. So there you have it. Posted online, take some sealed bids. People need questions answered or whatnot. I can handle that aspect of things, but as far as the any kind of bid process or whatnot, however you guys want to do it, that seems like it'd be better handled through Mary and the town office over there. So
That's typically, and that's all Facebook. I mean, does it have to, is there any other, does anybody do it? Like used to be through the newspaper also or anything like that? No, I mean, is there any other,
Yeah, I mean, well,
Or-
there's a bunch of different places.
or
we
could,
probably
I mean,
could.
if people know about it, can you put a bid in and send and drop it off the town office?
Yeah.
What we,
Mhm.
I would recommend we do is, Mary, the websites that you're getting the estimates for the, when you're dealing with the capital improvements,
Mhm.
there are websites that have municipal equipment.
Right, right. Yep.
Sealed bids should come in. I know that there might be construction companies interested in the squad to use that 12,000-mile dually as an alternate truck,
Right,
not a
right.
fire truck.
Yep. Yeah.
It has 12,000 miles on it. It's almost brand new
Mhm.
for a work truck. So the once we advertise it, depending if we get any feedback, we should request sealed bids
Mhm.
to be opened by Tyler in the presence of someone.
Yep.
Mhm.
Tyler, you're not interested in buying either of those trucks, are you?
I am not. If it was a school bus, it'd be different.
Then you can open them and it's an unbiased person opening them and someone else should be there.
Mhm.
So in the event John or Charlie bid on it, that we're not favoring the selectmen.
Right.
Okay, we'll come up with a packet. We'll come up with a.
Do we need a timeline or anything like that? Or is it just as soon as you get that figured out and did we need to make a, do we need to make a, vote or a motion on
They
this
should
or is,
go ahead and dispose of them.
so,
In worst case, we can sell the engine for scrap. The pumps are glass, right?
yeah, I don't know. So, I guess we need to make a motion to, let Mary make a draft of stuff and,
Yeah, the disposition of the old squad truck
yes.
and the.
and the engine.
Is that a motion?
Yes,
All
sure.
right. John moved
Second,
and Bronwyn seconded.
Any other, I mean, you've pretty much explained out what you're looking at. I'm in favor of it.
All right.
Yeah.
3-0.
Since it's winter time and they're in Five Island Station out of the snow and not blocking your plowing. You know, we set the date 15 January or 15 February or 10th
Whenever.
day.
Mhm. Oh, perfect. No, so I guess we're moving on, getting rid of those things for you.
Thank you, Brian.
all right, thanks guys.
Thank you, Brian.
And I believe the last item was an addition that Bronwyn had brought up. In getting packets out today, I'd mentioned to John and Bronwyn about the desire for the TV to be rehomed, and we're very thankful that we've been able to use it as long as we have. I just wanted board members to know that we'd be probably in the market for a new TV so we can keep utilizing Zoom.
The technology.
well,
And
I
that's-
wanted to it seemed to me that we should authorize the expenditure of some money so that you could have a seamless transition before at least the 2 or 3 of the committees meet exclusively by Zoom. So I guess in that case, they don't come to the conference room, but the hybrid meetings, such as the Harbor Committee will be on the 9th of November. They need the facility to function. And I don't know if there's other equipment connected to that screen that is also on loan or belongs to someone. But I think we should plan to spend the money to equip the site with town-owned equipment.
Bronwyn, just for information, we used to use, before I brought that television in, we used to use the computer that's sitting on the table 3 feet to its left. We had the means. I just had this television in the way, and it's a lot easier to see on a 56-inch television than a 18-inch monitor.
Yes,
Well,
And we
it
have the
shows,
means to do it.
yes. Can we just do it with discretionary or whatever the contingency or whatever that is?
And just so everyone's on the same page about that computer station, that computer does not run nearly as optimally as it should at this point. There's a lot of planning board videos that have been stored on there along with maintenance and wear. So I
You
really,
use your laptop and that computer.
okay,
So, I mean, so if we need to make a motion to.
well, I just wanted to note that the advantage of the large screen is that you can see the whole table and people at the table. And in a smaller screen, you really end up with 1 or 2 heads. And they have to be pretty close together. So definitely, if this is the place where we're going to have hybrid meetings, then this is the place where we need a good system. So do we need to specify some amount, or how do we proceed, Mary?
Well,
do
you
need?
can specify an amount, or you can just ask Tyler to get a new replacement. I mean,
How?
they're not, right, that's what I was just gonna say,
That's
because,
nice.
yeah,
I know that,
Okay, I think Tyler should find us a replacement.
yeah.
all right.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'll second that if that's a motion.
Yeah, I'll make it. That's
Yeah.
Are you gonna
kind of
have them
informal,
now?
but it's a motion.
I mean, you can give them an amount
Not to exceed.
not to exceed $1,000 or something. I don't know how much these are. I don't know.
I have
I
no
know that,
idea.
I know that today I did a very, between meetings, and it's been a very full day, I did a cursory glance of Google Shopping, and I found a 43-inch TV, not as big as this one, for 140. I would like to shop around and find the right model so we get the right thing. I think if it was under $250, we could probably find a good TV. And if it had to go over 250, I would obviously touch base with the board and
Well,
know.
I'd be happy to authorize a lot more than that, and you don't have to spend it. But I wouldn't want to see it held up just because.
Right.
do we
you
want to
know,
go 500? Because I
At
can find it.
least.
Okay,
At least
$1,000, for
500.
God's sakes.
Yeah, that's how I see
Please,
it.
will ya?
You might need something else to make it work.
hey, if it's up to 1,000, I will come in well under budget. So
Thank you.
Okay,
I'll second it.
any discussion?
Oh,
All right, all in favor? 3-0. And with that, I'm turning this back over to you for final public comment and then adjournment.
is there any, public comment? I don't see
Oh,
any.
I have one thing I had to add. Bob Trebona graciously reached out by text today to let me know that I had failed to put the planning board meeting on upcoming meetings, November 1st. And the solid waste committee will also be meeting on November 9th, a little bit later. So Bronwyn will have two meetings that afternoon on November 9th. So I just wanted to make sure I told Bob I'd let folks know, and I almost forgot. So sorry for interrupting.
All right, and since there was no public comment, motion to adjourn.
All of these?
Yes.
Did you have a motion to, or is there a motion to adjourn? I can't hear you. You're silenced.
Sorry. I thought Rich made the motion to adjourn. I'm happy to do that.
All right, I'll second it. All in favor?
Thank you, everyone.